Yes.
2011?
Yep.
Pretend there's nobody here.
I don't like
You're
that.
just telling your cousins what happened.
Okay, so it was Friday, the day of the royal wedding, and I was all packed and ready to go to Madison that day. He took a half day, and he picked me up from class, and he turned right when I said go left. And I was like, okay. He's like, oh, sorry, I was already turning right, and so didn't really think much of it. And then I was like, you can turn around up here, and he's like, oh, there's construction there, we can't turn. And so he kept going, and then every time I would tell him to turn right, he would either keep going straight or turn left. And so I was yelling at him, like, don't you turn. I know how to get to Madison. I've been there because he used to live there, so I drove there many times. But he was listening to his GPS, so I was like, you trust your GPS over me? And he's like, yep. And so finally I just stopped talking to him.
You got a little angry.
That sounds familiar.
And eventually we end up on this highway that really only leads to either the Mall of America or the airport. So he reached behind him and pulled out a manila envelope, and it had, or I was kind of flustered, like, what's going on? And pulled out 2 sheets of paper, and I could tell they were boarding passes. It took me like 20 seconds to even find out where we were going, where the destination was, but it said Denver. So we we went to the airport, and quickly I had to put all my stuff in. We like combined suitcases and made sure like I didn't have any liquids in my bag and all that, and ran inside, and then we flew to Denver. And on the plane he pulled out another envelope that was our hotel reservation for the weekend, and so, and then I think there was another one for dinner that night.
Wow.
Too. And so then we did dinner and everything, and him and his sister had plotted, we were planning on running a race on that Saturday and visiting his sister. Those were the 2 things we were going to be doing in Madison. But they had plotted a plan to get me to pack a dress for the weekend. So they said, Janelle, his sister, said that they she had a coupon that she needed to use at a fancy restaurant, so pack nice clothes. And Brent was like, where are we going? And kind of argued against it and really covered it up really well. And so Janelle was in on it, and then so I had packed a dress, and luckily it was supposed to be rainy and kind of cold in Madison, so I packed the right clothes for the weather that it was going to be in Colorado too. So anyway, then Saturday he had rented a car, and that was in another envelope with the car rental information and stuff. And so we got in the car, and he had brought his GPS, and we just kind of followed that through the mountains. And then I was getting sick because we ascended into the mountains too fast, and so I was texting my mom, I'm lightheaded, what do I do? And she just said to drink a lot of water. So finally, after a couple hours, I felt better, and we ended up at Mueller State Park, which is near Pikes Peak. And we were on a hike, and it was actually a campground too. There was no one around though because it wasn't open. So we were the only one within like a half a mile of any other people. And he was like, let's take a picture. And so we were trying to do the 10-second timer with my camera, but then it was dying, of course. And we didn't have any other batteries that had life left, so we tried, or I quickly like pushed the button and ran over, and the next thing I knew he reached in his pocket and was down on his knee and said, Rachel Elise Larson, will you marry me? And he said it really quickly, and I just like stood there and I didn't answer him right away, and I just started crying, and then I just hugged him for a while, and he's like, "You haven't said yes yet." And I was like, "Of course." So, and then we go back and look at my camera, and it died, so we didn't get that picture, but it's kind of a better story that way, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
That's great.
yep, and so then we had picked this ring out kind of together, so I like it.
I'll keep it.
Yeah, I'll take it. And then then we went, once we ended up back in Denver, we celebrated with it. That's when I wore my dress, and we dressed up and went to a nice dinner and stuff, so it was a good weekend.
Why Denver?
I told him three things when we first started talking about getting engaged and stuff, and I said, well, I'm not picky on how you do it, I just want it to be memorable, and that I don't want it to be a holiday where, you know, like it kind of overshadows another fun day, or I don't want it to be around a lot of other people, and I want to be outside. Those are the three things. So he took it to the extreme. And we were outside in the mountains. There was nobody else around forever, and it wasn't a holiday. Well, it was Tom's birthday, so I guess it was a holiday. But
Yes.
I didn't know it at the time. So, so yeah, it was April 30th. And what else? My mom knew. Greg knew.
He called me like 3 weeks before, I think, or maybe a month before, and asked me if it was okay to ask her to marry him. And I was like, yes!
Can I be there? Can I watch?
And then he told me he was going to do it that weekend of the 30th, and that he was going to take her to someplace, you know, they were going to have a weekend getaway because they hadn't basically been away together for a long time. And so then when she told me about this Madison trip, I was like, well, that sounds romantic. We're going to stay with your Brent's sister. I thought, cheapskate.
Way to go, Brent.
So he had me fooled too.
And you had to keep it secret?
Well, he didn't. Well, I had to keep it secret from Rachel.
All right,
And
yeah.
I did tell Dirk Ben at that time.
But that was,
I didn't tell anybody else.
that was almost better not to have known.
Well, I told you that when Rachel
Was going to Denver.
Oh.
when she was flying.
Denver.
That was the day you got your wisdom teeth out. And you were, I thought you were so out of it you wouldn't even remember. But then I found out later you were texting with Rachel.
I don't remember that.
You know?
No.
You texted me Denver, eh?
You don't remember that?
No.
Story.
Anyway.
Yeah. So he really had thought of everything. What else did he? Oh, he had snuck in my back closet and grabbed like a nice dress coat and stuff even for that dinner, and I don't know, I can't believe that he got away with it. He's usually not that good with surprises.
I love the fact that you weren't speaking to him when this whole thing started. That is
Something else.
precious memory.
Yeah. Then when I opened those boarding passes, I said, oh, so this is going to be a big weekend, isn't it? And he just said, oh. He tried to play it off, but how could he take me there and not propose?
That would be the surprise.
He would be not talking again.
Yeah. So the reason that trip was even possible was how we suffered for, well, not suffered, but when he worked for Epic for a year and a half and he traveled so much, he used frequent flyer miles and Marriott points and all that for the trip, so that's why it was possible. So I was like, maybe Epic wasn't so bad after all.
Exactly.